The massive space station called Concordia Prime floated peacefully around a dead star. For 3,000 years, it had been the center of galactic peace. Inside its shining halls, representatives from 847 different alien species worked together to solve problems without fighting. They talked, they debated, they made careful decisions that kept everyone happy. Counselor Zeftar stretched his blue, translucent arms and looked at the daily schedule. Another boring day of meetings about trade routes and mining rights. The ethereal collective had evolved past violence millions of years ago. Just like every other civilized species in the galaxy, war was something primitive creatures did before they learned to think properly. That peaceful morning ended when the alarm started screaming. "Unknown ships detected," shouted the young Calorian at the sensor station. His insect-like eyes were wide with panic. They just appeared out of nowhere. On the main screen, dozens of strange ships hung in space near the station. They looked rough and dangerous, covered in armor plating and weapon ports. The ships were broadcasting a message on every frequency at once. "Greetings, Concordia Prime. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human fleet from a planet called Earth. We're here to join your galactic council. When do we start?" The entire control room fell silent. Species didn't just show up and ask to join the council. There were procedures, protocols, centuries of careful steps to make sure new members were ready for civilized society. Counselor Vorthak of the ancient Vorth Dominion spoke first. His species had been part of the council since the beginning. They bypassed every first contact protocol. They didn't even request permission to enter our space. "Maybe they don't know the rules," suggested Counselor Miralen from the Peaceful Gardens colony. Her flower-like face showed concern rather than anger. "Then they're not ready for membership," Vorthak replied coldly. Captain Chen's voice came through the speakers again. "We can hear you talking about us. Your communication system isn't very secure. Anyway, we brought gifts." The human ships launched small pods toward the station. The security teams panicked, thinking they were weapons. Instead, the pods contained food, music, and something called coffee that made several alien species extremely hyperactive. 3 hours later, Captain Chen sat in the council chamber. She was a middle-aged woman with short gray hair and scars on her hands. She looked around at the hundreds of alien representatives with obvious curiosity. "So," she said cheerfully, "how does this work? Do we get a desk? A parking spot for our ships?" High Counselor Zerion, an ancient being made of living crystal, spoke in his slow, careful way. "The process of joining our council typically takes several decades. First, we must study your culture, your technology, your history of conflict resolution." "Conflict resolution?" Chen laughed. "Oh, we're great at that. Just last month we stopped a war between the Mars colonies and the Belt miners." "How did you accomplish this peaceful solution?" asked Counselor Zeftar, genuinely interested. "We told both sides we'd cut off their supply shipments if they didn't stop shooting at each other. War ended in 3 days. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The idea of using threats to stop violence was completely alien to them." "You threatened them?" Vorthak's voice was horrified. "Well, yeah. Sometimes people need motivation to do the right thing. We also told them they could split the mining profits 60-40 instead of fighting over who got 100% of nothing." Over the following weeks, humanity's presence at Concordia Prime became impossible to ignore. Humans solved problems that had puzzled the Council for years, but their methods were terrifying. When the Spiral Arm Trading Company complained about pirates attacking their ships, the Council had spent 40 years trying to negotiate with the pirates. Humans sent 3 warships and hunted down every pirate base in the sector. The attack stopped completely. "But what about the pirates' rights?" demanded Counselor Yiltar of the Harmony Seekers. "What about the rights of the people they were robbing and killing?" replied Ambassador Maria Santos, humanity's diplomatic representative. She was younger than Chen but had the same direct way of speaking that made aliens uncomfortable. When 2 species started arguing over who owned a particular star system, the Council prepared for their standard mediation process. It usually took about 18 months of careful discussions. Humans ended the dispute in one afternoon by physically moving the space station that both sides wanted to a neutral location. "You can't just move a space station," protested Counselor Miralen. "Why not?" asked Santos. "We brought fusion cutters and gravity manipulators. The station is now exactly halfway between both your planets. Problem solved." The breaking point came when humans volunteered to help with the food crisis on Kepler 442b. The planet's population was starving because their crops had failed, and their government was too proud to accept charity. The council had been debating the best approach for 8 months. Humans loaded a fleet of cargo ships with food and simply delivered it to the planet's surface. When the government protested, Captain Chen replied, "Sue us, after your people finish eating." The food crisis ended in 1 week. That evening, Councillor Vorthak called an emergency session. "These humans are dangerous," he announced. "They solve problems through force and intimidation. They ignore our laws and customs. They represent everything our civilization has evolved beyond. But their methods work," pointed out Councillor Yiltar reluctantly. "In 6 months, they've solved more problems than we've solved in the past decade." "At what cost?" Vorthak's voice was sharp. "They've shown the galaxy that violence and threats can be more effective than peaceful discussion. They're teaching our citizens that our way of life is wrong." Zeftar found himself defending the humans, even though they made him nervous. "Perhaps we've become too comfortable with problems that have no easy solutions. Humans show us that some issues require direct action." "Direct action is just a polite way of saying violence," Vorthak replied. "I call for a vote to expel humanity from the council before they corrupt everything we've built." The debate lasted for hours. Species that had never disagreed about anything found themselves split down the middle. Some saw humans as useful problem solvers. Others saw them as a threat to galactic peace. When the vote finally came, it was close, 451 in favor of expulsion, 3-96 against. Captain Chen received the news while drinking coffee in the human embassy. She set down her cup and nodded slowly. "I understand," she told the messenger. "We knew this might happen." The next day, human ships began leaving Concordia Prime. Captain Chen's final message to the council was broadcast on all frequencies. "We're disappointed, but we're not angry. You've built something beautiful here. A galaxy where different species live in peace. That's amazing, and we respect it. But peace only works when everyone agrees to be peaceful. If something shows up that your peace can't handle, you know where to find us. We'll be out on the rim doing what humans do best, surviving and fighting the things that go bump in the dark. Good luck and thanks for the experience." As the last human ship disappeared into jump space, Councillor Zeftar couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made a terrible mistake. But the council chambers were quiet again, and the galaxy returned to its normal, peaceful routine. For now. 3 months after the humans left, Ambassador Santos was building a new colony on a planet at the edge of the galaxy. The world was harsh and dangerous, with storms that could strip the skin off an unprotected human. But her people were already setting up farms and factories, turning the hostile environment into something livable. That was what humans did best. They adapted. Santos was reviewing construction reports when her communication officer rushed into the command center. "Ambassador, we're getting a priority message from Concordia Prime. It's marked urgent." The holographic image that appeared showed Councillor Zeftar, but he looked different. His usually calm blue face was tight with worry, and his translucent skin flickered with stress patterns. "Ambassador Santos," he began formally, "the Council requires humanity's assistance with several developing situations." Santos raised an eyebrow. "I thought we were too dangerous for civilized society." "The situation has changed," Zeftar admitted. "We have problems that require unconventional solutions." Santos listened as the counselor explained. Without humans around to quickly solve problems, several small issues had grown into major crises. The pirate attacks had resumed and gotten worse. 3 more trade disputes had turned into actual conflicts. A plague was spreading through the outer colonies because the medical relief ships couldn't get past the fighting. "What do you want us to do about it?" Santos asked. "You voted us out, remember?" "We're not asking you to rejoin the council," Zeftar said carefully. "We're asking for consulting services, temporary assistance with specific problems." Santos was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. "I'll need to talk to my people, but I think we can help. On one condition, we do things our way. No committees, no 6-month debates. You give us a problem, we solve it fast." "Agreed," Zeftar said quickly. The first test came within a week. The Calorian Hive had declared war on the merchant coalition over trade routes. Both sides had fleets moving toward each other, and the council was preparing for their standard 18-month mediation process. Santos looked at the star charts and made 3 calls. Within 2 days, human ships had contacted both fleets. Captain Chen herself spoke to the Calorian war leader. You're fighting over shipping lanes in the neutral zone, right? The ones where those giant space monsters keep eating your cargo ships? The Void Krakens, yes, replied Hive Commander Zakth. His insect-like face twitched with anger. The Coalition claims those routes are theirs, but we were using them first. How about instead of fighting each other over the right to lose ships to giant monsters, you work together to hunt the monsters? Then you can both use safe trade routes. The war ended in 6 days. Both fleets joined forces to hunt Void Krakens, and the creatures were completely cleared from the shipping lanes within a month. The former enemies were now making huge profits from their joint operations. The Council was amazed, but Councillor Vorthak was furious. They're teaching the galaxy that problems can be solved through violence, he complained to anyone who would listen. They solved a problem that was about to kill thousands of people, Zeftar replied. How is that wrong? Because now everyone will think fighting is the answer to everything. But Vorthak was wrong. The galaxy didn't learn that fighting was the answer. They learned that humans had different answers. Answers that worked. When the plague on the outer colonies got worse, the Council wanted to send medical supply ships. But the fighting fleets were blocking the shipping lanes, and negotiating passage would take months. Santos sent human medical teams in fast attack ships. They ignored the blockades completely, used their superior engines to outrun anyone who tried to stop them, and delivered medicine directly to the planets that needed it. You can't just ignore military blockades, protested the Spiral Armed Defense Force. We just did, replied Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, the human medical coordinator. People were dying. Our job is to save lives, not respect your imaginary lines in space. The plague was stopped in 3 weeks. Every success made Vorthak more angry. His speeches to the Council became longer and more desperate. These humans are destroying everything we've built. They're teaching our citizens that our peaceful ways are worthless. He wasn't entirely wrong. Some younger alien species were starting to question why problems that humans could solve in days took the Council months or years to even discuss. The crisis came when the Terran Mining Consortium discovered something impossible in a dead star system on the galaxy's edge. Their deep space survey ship found a series of planets that had been completely drained of all energy. Not just the planets, the star itself was dark and cold, as if something had sucked all the heat and light out of it. The survey team's final message was brief and terrifying. The damage pattern suggests intelligence. Something did this on purpose, sending data now. If anything happens to us, warn the Council. This wasn't natural. The ship vanished. A rescue fleet found only debris and radiation that didn't match any known weapon. Within days, similar discoveries were reported across the galaxy. Dead systems arranged in a perfect spiral pattern, each one drained of energy in the same impossible way. Some of the dead zones were millions of years old, but others showed signs of recent activity. The Council called emergency sessions. Committees were formed to study the threat. Research teams were organized to investigate the pattern. Debate began on the proper response. Weeks passed. More ships vanished when they got too close to the dead zones. The spiral pattern was growing, expanding toward inhabited systems. That's when Councillor Zeftar made a suggestion that split the Council down the middle. We need the humans, he said during a closed session. This threat is beyond anything we've ever faced. Our peaceful methods aren't working. We need people who know how to fight impossible odds. Absolutely not. Vorthak's voice shook with rage. We can handle this ourselves through proper diplomatic and scientific channels. We don't need those violent barbarians. Our proper channels have gotten us nowhere, Zeftar replied. Ships are disappearing. Entire star systems are dying. Whatever this is, it doesn't care about our diplomatic protocols. The debate raged for hours. Some council members argued that asking humans for help would be admitting their way of life was wrong. Others pointed out that their way of life wouldn't matter if they were all dead. Finally, High Councillor Zarion called for a vote. All in favor of recalling humanity to assist with this crisis. The chamber fell silent as votes were counted. When the results appeared on the main screen, even Zarion's crystal form seemed to flicker with surprise. Cardo in favor. 423 against humanity would be asked to return by a margin of exactly 1 vote. Zeftar was chosen to make the call. As Santos's image appeared on his personal communicator, he tried to find the right words. Ambassador, he began. We need your help. Something is killing star systems. and our ships keep disappearing when they investigate. We don't know what we're facing, but it's beyond anything the Council has ever encountered." Santos listened to his explanation without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're asking us to fight something that can kill entire star systems," she said finally. "Something that made your survey ships vanish without a trace." "Yes, and you have no idea what it is or how to stop it." "That's correct." Santos smiled. "Sounds like Tuesday morning around here. We'll be there in 48 hours. Send us everything you know about these dead zones." As Zeftar ended the call, he wondered if humanity's return would save the galaxy or destroy what little peace remained. But watching the reports of expanding dead zones and vanishing ships, he realized peace might not be an option anymore. Something was hunting them all. Dr. James Park floated in his research pod, staring at data that made no sense. The human xenobiologist had been studying the dead star systems for 2 weeks, and every new discovery was more frightening than the last. "Ambassador Santos," he called over the ship's communication system. "You need to see this." Santos pushed off from the wall of the human research ship and drifted over to Park's workstation. Around them, dozens of human scientists worked in the zero-gravity environment, their movements quick and efficient. Unlike the aliens, humans seemed to thrive in hostile conditions. "What have you found?" Santos asked. Park gestured to the holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked the dead systems, forming a spiral pattern that stretched across most of known space. "The pattern isn't random. Look at the dates." Santos studied the timeline. The oldest dead systems were on the outer edge of the spiral, dating back millions of years. The newest ones were closer to the galactic center, including the recent discoveries. "It's been working its way inward for millions of years," Park explained. "But here's the scary part. The rate of destruction is accelerating. Systems that were drained thousands of years apart in the outer galaxy are now being hit weeks apart near the center." "What does that mean?" "Whatever is doing this is getting stronger, or there are more of them now." Park highlighted another section of data. "But there's something else. Look at these energy readings from the newest dead zones." The display showed radiation signatures unlike anything in the galactic database. The energy pattern suggested something that was part organic, part technological, and completely alien. "I've never seen anything like this," Park continued. "It's as if someone built a machine using living tissue, or evolved a creature that functions like a machine." "The power levels are off the charts." Before Santos could respond, alarms started sounding throughout the research ship. Captain Chen's voice came over the speakers. "All hands, battle stations. We've got contact." Santos and Park rushed to the bridge, where Chen was staring at the main screen with the expression she usually wore before a fight. Calm, focused, and slightly amused. "Report," Santos ordered. Long-range sensors picked up something big moving through the Kepler 442 system. Chen replied. "I mean really big. The size readings don't make sense." The screen showed a distant object moving between the planets of a system that had been evacuated weeks earlier. As the sensors focused, the image became clearer and more impossible. The thing was larger than most moons, with a surface that seemed to shift between organic curves and geometric patterns. Parts of it glowed with the same radiation signature Park had found in the dead zones. As they watched, it moved toward the system's star. "It's heading for the sun," whispered the sensor operator. They watched in horrified fascination as the creature, or machine, or whatever it was, extended something like tentacles toward the star. The sun's light began to dim as streams of energy flowed from the star into the entity. "It's feeding," Park said quietly. "The star is its food source." The process took 6 hours. When it was finished, the star was dark and cold, just like all the others. The entity had grown noticeably larger, and new structures had appeared on its surface. Then it turned toward their ship. Captain Chen's hand moved to the weapons controls. "Should I fire?" "With what?" Santos asked. "Our biggest guns would be like throwing rocks at a mountain." The entity began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple, but the voice that spoke it seemed to come from everywhere at once, like the sound of space itself talking. "New species detected. Classification unknown. Threat assessment minimal. Scheduled for processing." Santos grabbed the communication controls. "This is Ambassador Maria Santos representing humanity and the Galactic Council." "Who are you? What do you want?" The response came immediately, Designation irrelevant. Purpose universal optimization. Current galactic civilization inefficient. Resource allocation suboptimal. Correction required. Correction. Elimination of current species. Replacement with improved designs. Resistance is illogical. The entity began moving toward the next star system, ignoring their ship completely. It didn't see them as a threat, they were just another species waiting to be processed. Santos ordered an immediate jump back to Concordia Prime. The data they carried would change everything. The emergency council session was the largest in galactic history. Representatives from every member species crowded into the chamber, their faces showing the same expression of barely controlled panic. High Counselor Zerion's crystal form flickered as he processed the human data. "You are certain of these findings?" "Completely," Santos replied. "The entity is not just destroying civilizations, it's feeding on them. Stars are its food source, and planets are just obstacles to remove. Based on its current path and acceleration rate, it will reach the core systems within 18 months. Counselor Vorthak stood up, his ancient form trembling. There must be a way to communicate with it. To find a peaceful solution. "We tried," Captain Chen said bluntly. "It told us we're scheduled for elimination. I don't think it's interested in negotiations." "Every species can be reasoned with," Vorthak insisted. "Violence cannot be the answer." "Sometimes violence is the only answer," Santos replied. "When someone tries to kill you, you fight back or you die." The council erupted in arguments. Some species wanted to evacuate to other galaxies. Others suggested trying to hide until the entity passed. A few even proposed surrendering and hoping for mercy. Counselor Zeftar listened to the chaos with growing frustration. Finally, he activated his speaker with enough volume to quiet the chamber. "We're debating how to run away from something that eats stars," he said. "Does anyone here seriously think we can hide from a creature that size? Does anyone believe we can negotiate with something that views our entire civilization as a resource allocation problem?" "What are you suggesting?" asked Counselor Miralen. "I'm suggesting we fight." The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no one had ever suggested war as a solution to anything. "Fight with what?" Vorthak's voice was incredulous. "Our largest ships are tiny compared to that thing. Our most powerful weapons couldn't scratch it." "Then we build bigger ships and better weapons," Santos said. "Humans have been fighting impossible odds since we learned to walk upright." "We know how to do this." "You know how to destroy things," Vorthak corrected. "We know how to build and create and preserve life." "Right now, preservation means being willing to fight for what you want to preserve," Captain Chen said. "That thing out there doesn't care about your art or your philosophy or your beautiful, peaceful society. It just sees calories." Counselor Zeftar made the motion that would split the galaxy forever. "I propose we mobilize every resource we have to fight this entity. I propose we build the largest military force in galactic history and find a way to kill something that eats stars." The vote was closer than anyone expected. 446 in favor, 401 against. The galaxy was going to war. As the session ended and species representatives hurried away to prepare their worlds for the impossible task ahead, Santos found herself standing next to Zeftar in the empty chamber. "Do you really think we can win?" the alien asked. Santos looked out through the chamber's massive windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, an ancient horror was methodically destroying everything they had built. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I know what happens if we don't try. At least this way, we go down fighting." Zeftar's translucent skin flickered with what humans had learned was his species' equivalent of a grim smile. "I'm beginning to understand why humans solve problems so quickly. When the alternative is extinction, efficiency becomes very important." "Welcome to the human way of thinking," Santos replied. "Now let's go save the galaxy." Admiral Rebecca Jackson stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Defiance, watching alien construction ships work alongside human engineering teams. 6 months ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Now it was the galaxy's only hope for survival. The shipyard floating outside Concordia Prime was the largest construction project in galactic history. Hundreds of species had contributed their best technology, combining alien energy systems with human weapons designed to create ships that had never existed before. "Status report," Jackson ordered. Commander Torres checked his displays. "Fleet construction is at 60%. We have 400 heavy cruisers completed, 200 more under construction. The alien shield generators are working better than expected with our hull designs. Jackson nodded. The cooperation had surprised everyone. Species that had spent centuries in peaceful isolation were now sharing their most advanced military secrets. Fear of extinction was a powerful motivator. What about the weapon testing? Dr. Reeves wants to show you the latest results. She's pretty excited about something. Jackson found Dr. Elizabeth Reeves in the research section, surrounded by holographic displays showing energy wave patterns. The human scientist had been working with alien researchers for months, trying to find the entity's weakness. "Admiral, we've had a breakthrough," Reeves said without looking up from her work. "The entity feeds on stellar energy, but it has to process that energy through biological organs. Those organs operate on specific quantum frequencies." "In simple terms, Doctor," Reeves grinned, "it has a stomach and we figured out how to give it indigestion. The frequencies that disrupt its digestion process are the same ones produced by certain types of sound waves." Sound waves? Specifically, the kind of complex harmonic patterns humans call music. But not just any music, it has to be loud, aggressive, and highly structured. Classical music doesn't work. Folk music doesn't work. But heavy metal? That causes significant resonance in its biological systems. Jackson stared at her. "You're telling me we can hurt this thing with rock music?" "Not just hurt it, we can disrupt its ability to process energy. If we can generate the right frequencies at high enough power levels, we might be able to force it to regurgitate energy instead of absorbing it." "How do we generate these frequencies in space?" "We've modified our ship communication arrays to broadcast music at massive amplification levels. The Calorian Hive contributed their sonic attack systems. The Ethereal Collective provided harmonic resonance amplifiers. Together, they can turn any ship into a giant speaker system." Jackson thought about reporting to the Council that their secret weapon was death metal music. "Does this actually work?" "We tested it on a smaller construct, one of those hunter-killer things the entity sends ahead of itself. The music disrupted its energy system so badly that it basically fell apart." "Show me." The test footage showed a human cruiser facing one of the entity's constructs, a machine creature the size of a destroyer that had been terrorizing the outer colonies. The ship began broadcasting what Reeves called therapeutic aggression music at maximum volume. The construct's smooth movements became erratic. Its energy emissions flickered and sparked. Within minutes, the creature was tumbling helplessly through space, its biological systems completely disrupted. "The music interferes with their quantum biological processes," Reeves explained. "It's like playing a frequency that makes them physically sick." Jackson smiled for the first time in months. "Doctor, I want every ship in the fleet equipped with these systems." "What's the heaviest, most aggressive music humanity has ever produced?" "I've been compiling a playlist. Lots of metal, some industrial, a few pieces specifically composed to be as sonically aggressive as possible. I call it the Xenocide Symphony." 3 weeks later, the combined galactic fleet faced the entity in the Vega system. The creature had grown even larger since its last appearance, now the size of a small planet. It moved through space with the confidence of something that had never faced real resistance. Jackson stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the entity approach. Around her, ships from dozens of species formed a battle line that stretched across the system. Humans had provided the strategy and weapons. Aliens had provided advanced technology and manufacturing capability. Together, they had built something that had never existed before, a truly galactic military force. "All ships, this is Admiral Jackson," she broadcast on all frequencies. "Today we're going to do something that's never been done before. We're going to pick a fight with something that eats stars, and we're going to win. Remember, our goal isn't to destroy it completely. We just need to prove that we can hurt it." The entity noticed their fleet and sent out its standard message. "Resistance is illogical. Compliance reduces processing time." Jackson activated her personal communicator. "This is Admiral Rebecca Jackson representing the combined species of this galaxy. We're not complying. We're not running. We're here to kick your ancient ass back to whatever hole you crawled out of." The entity paused as if surprised by the response. Then it began deploying constructs, dozens of the smaller hunter-killer machines that had been terrorizing the outer systems. "All ships, execute Symphony Protocol," Jackson ordered. The fleet began broadcasting music. The sound was impossible in the vacuum of space, but the quantum effects were real. Harmonic frequencies designed to disrupt biological processes filled the area around the fleet. The approaching constructs began to falter, their smooth movements becoming erratic. Then the real battle began. Human ships, their hulls reinforced with alien technology, charged directly at the entity, while broadcasting heavy metal at maximum volume. Alien vessels equipped with human weapons provided covering fire and technical support. The entity's response was immediate and terrifying. Energy beams that could vaporize a city swept across the fleet. Gravitational weapons crushed ships like tin cans. But the music was working. The entity's movements were becoming less coordinated, its energy output fluctuating. "It's working," shouted Commander Torres. "The entity's power levels are dropping." Jackson watched her tactical display as human and alien ships worked together in ways that would have been impossible just months earlier. The galaxy's peaceful species had learned to fight, while humanity had learned to cooperate. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the entity had retreated to the outer system, its energy readings significantly reduced. More importantly, it had lost dozens of constructs and shown that it could be hurt. Jackson's fleet had lost 30 ships, but they had accomplished something that had never been done before. They had forced the galaxy's apex predator to retreat. The entity's final message before it withdrew was different from its usual proclamations. Unusual resistance encountered. Reassessment required. Enhanced countermeasures authorized. "What does that mean?" asked Counselor Zeftar, who had watched the battle from the flagship. "It means we got its attention," Jackson replied. "It knows we're not just another species waiting to be processed. It's going to come back with everything it has. Are we ready for that?" Jackson looked at her tactical display, showing the combined fleet of hundreds of ships from dozens of species, humans and aliens working together, sharing technology and strategies that none of them could have developed alone. "We're about to find out," she said. "But for the first time since this started, I think we actually have a chance." Dr. Reeves appeared on the bridge, carrying a data pad with new research. "Admiral, we've been analyzing the entity's retreat. I think I know why it's really here." "Explain." "It's not just destroying civilizations, it's testing them. Every species it encounters gets the same treatment. A period of observation, then a challenge to see if they're worth preserving. Most species fail because they can't mount effective resistance. What happens to the ones that pass the test?" Reeves smiled grimly. "We're about to find out. But I don't think this entity is just a predator. I think it's a guardian, making sure that only species capable of defending themselves inherit the galaxy." Jackson considered this. "So it's going to keep escalating until we either prove we're worthy or die trying." "That's my theory." "Good," Jackson said. "Because I'm really looking forward to the final exam." The entity returned 3 months later, and it brought friends. Admiral Jackson stood in the command center of Concordia Prime, watching the sensor displays with grim fascination. The original entity had returned, but now it was accompanied by dozens of smaller versions, each one still the size of a moon, each one capable of draining a star. "How many?" she asked quietly. 47 large entities, approximately 3,000 constructs of various sizes, reported Commander Torres. They're arranged in a perfect sphere formation around the Vega system. Dr. Reeves looked up from her research station. "They're not attacking yet. They're waiting for something." As if responding to her words, a new transmission began broadcasting on all frequencies. This time, the voice was different, older, more complex, carrying harmonics that made every species in the galaxy feel a deep, instinctive fear. "Final assessment initiated. Galactic civilization has demonstrated moderate resistance capability. Ultimate evaluation required." The transmission paused, and when it continued, the voice seemed to come from the ancient depths of space itself. "This galaxy was seeded with life by the architects eons ago. We are their final safeguard, ensuring that only species capable of defending against cosmic threats inherit the stars. You have shown potential. Now you will face the true test." High Counselor Zerion's crystal form flickered with stress patterns. "What kind of test?" The answer came immediately. "Single combat. One representative of your combined civilizations against our primary unit. Victory grants you guardianship of this galaxy. Defeat results in complete processing of all current species. Single combat? Counselor Zeftar's translucent skin paled. Against that thing? The entity continued. Combat will take place within the corona of the Vega star. Your champion will face our primary unit in its natural environment. You have one standard galactic day to choose your representative. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. They want us to send someone to fight that monster inside a star, Counselor Vorthak said, his voice barely a whisper. It's impossible. No one can survive in that environment. Humans can, Jackson said quietly. We've built suits that can operate in stellar environments for short periods. The real question is whether anyone can actually fight that thing and win. Santos looked around the room at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Who do we send? Our greatest warrior? Our smartest scientist? Our most skilled pilot? You send me, Jackson said. The room erupted in protests. Jackson was their military commander, their strategic coordinator. They couldn't risk losing her. With respect to everyone here, Jackson continued, I'm the one with the most experience fighting impossible odds. And if this goes wrong, you're going to need someone else to coordinate the evacuation. Dr. Reeves stepped forward. Admiral, I've been studying the entity's biology. Fighting it inside a star isn't just about weapons or tactics. The environment itself will be trying to kill you every second. The pressure, the radiation, the magnetic fields, they're all beyond anything we've ever tested. Then I guess we'll find out what humans are really capable of, Jackson replied. 20 hours later, Jackson floated in the most advanced suit of armor ever built. Human technology formed the base, a powered exoskeleton capable of surviving in stellar environments. Alien contributions had enhanced every system. Ethereal collective energy shields, Calorian biosupport systems, Vorth gravity manipulators, and weapons that combined the best technology from hundreds of species. The suit's AI was loaded with every piece of music from humanity's most aggressive genres, ready to broadcast sonic attacks at frequencies designed to disrupt the entity's biological processes. Final systems check, Dr. Reeves said over the communication link. All green, Jackson replied. Life support good for 6 hours in stellar environment. Weapons charged, music playlist locked and loaded. Admiral, Counselor Zeftar's voice came through the speakers. On behalf of all the species of this galaxy, thank you. Thank me when I get back, Jackson said. She activated her suit's propulsion system and headed toward the blue giant star where her enemy waited. The journey into the star's corona was like descending into hell. Temperature readings climbed beyond anything that should be survivable. Radiation levels spiked to lethal doses every few seconds. Magnetic fields strong enough to tear apart starships tried to rip her armor apart. But human engineering and alien technology held together, and Jackson descended deeper into the star's burning atmosphere. She found the entity waiting for her in a pocket of stable space within the stellar plasma. Up close, it was even more impossible. A crystalline intelligence the size of a city, its surfaces reflecting the star's fire like a living jewel. Energy flowed through it in patterns that hurt to look at. You are the chosen champion, the entity said, its voice somehow audible even in the plasma storm. Explain your species' worthiness to inherit this galaxy. We don't inherit anything, Jackson replied, activating her weapon systems. We earn it. The battle began. The entity attacked with forces that could reshape matter at the quantum level. Energy beams that could carve through planets swept toward Jackson's position. Gravitational weapons tried to crush her into a singularity. Plasma, storms hot enough to ignite atmospheres, surrounded her on all sides. Jackson responded with everything humanity had learned about survival. When her primary weapons were destroyed, she improvised new ones from stellar plasma. When her shields failed, she used the star's own magnetic fields for protection. When the entity's attacks should have killed her, she adapted and kept fighting. Impossible, the entity said as Jackson's sonic attacks disrupted its energy patterns. No species has maintained offensive capability in this environment. You obviously haven't met humans before, Jackson replied, launching herself directly at the entity's core. We specialize in doing impossible things. What followed was less a battle than a testament to human stubbornness. Jackson's suit was torn apart piece by piece. Her weapons failed one by one. Her life support systems were pushed beyond their limits. But she kept fighting, using debris from her own armor as weapons, channeling the star's energy through her damaged systems, and broadcasting death metal at volumes that disrupted the entity's quantum biological processes. When her suit's main power failed, she continued on backup systems. When her weapons were destroyed, she improvised explosives from her remaining equipment. When the entity demanded her surrender, she responded with humanity's oldest battle cry, "Come and take it." The entity began to show signs of damage. Its crystalline structure developed cracks. Its energy flows became erratic. For the first time in eons, it was facing something that refused to die when it should. "Your resistance is admirable but futile," the entity said, gathering energy for a final attack. "You cannot win." "Watch me," Jackson replied. She activated the last functioning system in her armor, the emergency beacon that would sacrifice all remaining power to send one final transmission. But instead of calling for help, she used it to broadcast one last song at maximum volume. Humanity's anthem of defiance, amplified through alien technology and focused through the star's own energy fields. The sonic attack tore through the entity's quantum biological systems like a knife. Its crystalline structure shattered. Its energy flows collapsed. For the first time since the galaxy was young, the apex predator screamed. And then, impossibly, it began to laugh. "Magnificent," the entity said as its form began to dissolve. "Utterly magnificent. We have waited millions of years for a species like yours." "Like what?" Jackson asked, her voice weak from exhaustion and radiation exposure. "Like you. Stubborn, adaptable, unwilling to accept that some things cannot be beaten. The architects would be proud." The entity's voice grew fainter as its physical form collapsed. "The galaxy is yours now, humans. Guard it well. Protect the peaceful species who cannot protect themselves. Fight the things that go bump in the dark. And when something worse than us comes from the void between galaxies, be ready." "Wait," Jackson called. "What's worse than you?" But the entity was gone, dissolved into starfire and memory. Jackson's rescue came 6 hours later, when Admiral Santos led a recovery team into the star's corona to find her floating unconscious in the wreckage of her armor. Her survival was impossible by every law of physics, but she was human, and humans specialized in impossible things. 3 weeks later, Jackson stood before the assembled Galactic Council, still wearing medical bandages, but refusing to stay in the hospital any longer. "The entity called us guardians," she reported. "It said the galaxy is ours to protect now. I think that means we're responsible for everyone's safety, not just our own." Counselor Zeftar spoke for the entire council. "What does that mean for the future?" Jackson looked around the chamber at representatives from hundreds of peaceful species who had learned to fight when they had to, and at the humans who had learned to cooperate when it mattered. "It means when something nasty shows up from outside the galaxy, we'll be ready for it. All of us together. The peaceful species provide the civilization worth protecting. Humans provide the protection. Everyone contributes what they do best." "And if nothing attacks us?" asked Counselor Vorthak. Jackson smiled.